If there are two things people take away from Dragon Ball fights, it's yelling really loud and throwing big energy attacks. You wouldn't be entirely wrong to assume that people in Dragon Ball do a lot of yelling. Between the kamehamehas and big bang attacks, oftentimes what gets the job done is a good old-fashioned beatdown. In this video, we'll be taking a look at some of the best feats of strength and beatdowns in Dragon Ball. To qualify for this list, the character has to perform an extraordinary feat of strength or show a level of power previously unseen in Dragon Ball. We start off with the climax of Dragon Ball Super, Goku vs Jiren. All throughout the Tournament of Power, we've seen Jiren utterly waste anyone who stood against him. Without lifting a finger, Jiren manages to toss Goku around at the beginning of their fight. Goku changes through his various forms, from Super Saiyan all the way to Super Saiyan Blue, and Jiren knocks him around with just a glance. It becomes clear to Goku that conventional methods are no match for Jiren. A classic Dragon Ball Z moment for sure. In a desperate move to stop a rampaging Gohan, Piccolo destroys the moon. This scene has been joked about and parodied for years, because at the time, this display of power was unseen. After Dragon Ball Super, destroying planets seems mundane, especially when Zeno can destroy entire universes. However, this moment happened in the Saiyan saga, before Super Saiyans, even before Frieza. And here, we see Piccolo destroying a celestial body like the moon like it was nothing. The pinnacle moment in the Buu saga is when Goku and Vegeta finally put their differences aside and work to defeat Majin Buu. This is also where we see the two most powerful main characters fuse via Patara earrings to make Vegeta. This version is much more powerful than using the fusion dance, which brings Gogeta. This new fusion is enough to go toe-to-toe with Super Buu, though this would not be the final form Buu would take, and it is a grand display of their two combined Saiyan powers. One of the more interesting characters to come out of Dragon Ball Super was Hit, a character that can stop time for a short amount and strike with deadly force. When he was first introduced in the Universe 7 vs 6 tournament, he defeated Vegeta without anyone seeing what happened. Goku managed to edge out a win against Hit by utilizing a strange combination, his Kaioken and Super Saiyan Blue forms to literally punch Hit through time. What a way to kick off Dragon Ball Super than to have Frieza come back and try to kill all those filthy monkeys. The Resurrection F arc was an amazing extended fight between Goku and Frieza, but this entry is all about Vegeta. Near the end of the arc, he appears in his brilliant Super Saiyan Blue, no doubt. He then proceeds to pummel Frieza into the ground and knock him up and down with his new power. Unlike the fight beforehand with Goku, the beating Vegeta gives Frieza is just brutal and oddly satisfying. Perhaps one of the most jarring changes Dragon Ball Super brought to the table was the introduction of destroyers. These celestial beings live for just one purpose: to destroy so that Kais can create. Lord Beerus, everyone's favorite purple cat, is the main god of destruction we follow in Super, and he does not use his powers sparingly. In fact, he's all too happy to show off his incredible power to destroy. I mean, the first thing he does when we see him is destroy half a planet with just a flick of his finger. In a normal fight, bringing a sword to a martial arts fight would give you an advantage. In Dragon Ball, weapons are for the most part frowned upon. The exception to this rule is Trunks' sword, the weapon the character is known for. When he arrived on the scene at the beginning of the Android saga, he was the coolest character design-wise. After being rebuilt as a cyborg, Frieza swore revenge but was stopped by Trunks. He then proceeds to take out Frieza's men, Frieza himself, and even Frieza's dad, King Cold, all while using a cool broadsword. Ever since Dragon Ball, human characters have been relegated to the sidelines. There's not much the human spirit can do when put up against intergalactic space monkeys and enhanced androids. Tien, the three-eyed monk who at one point was a feared and lethal assassin, stood up to semi-perfect Cell. There wasn't much he could do. Still, Tien managed to use his Kikoho to pin down Cell long enough for help to arrive. A human, one that hasn't been relevant since Dragon Ball, was pinning down the greatest threat currently in the show. Dragon Ball injuries fall into a dichotomy of sorts. Either you're beaten up and knocked out, or vaporized and killed. Rarely do we see an in-between when it comes to injuries. During the Android saga, we saw something a little different. Coming off the high of destroying Android 19, Vegeta was over-anxious when fighting Android 18. Despite the constant warnings against it, Vegeta went in blindly against the fierce female android. The resulting beatdown was to be expected. Android 18 breaks not one, but both of Vegeta's arms. It was a beating rarely seen in Dragon Ball. It was this early on in the series that the human characters realized how irrelevant they would become for the rest of the franchise. On paper, it seemed like a done deal. 3 strong human fighters, a Saiyan kid and a Namekian against just 2 Saiyans. Just one Saiyan, Nappa, killed or beat all of them by himself. One by one, the Z fighters stood little of a chance against what was basically just Vegeta's henchmen. Thanks to Dragon Ball Z and Super, we're used to mountains, planets, and even universes being destroyed due to the overwhelming power these characters have. We're talking about celestial beings here. However, the original Dragon Ball was more grounded, which made great feats even greater because they only came once in a while. The first time we see a kamehameha is when Master Roshi uses it to level an entire mountain. The Turtle Master shows everyone just what he can do when he bulks up to nearly 3 times his size. The amazing feat with unheard of powers shocked Goku and inspired him to be his student. This scene made fans do a double take. There were so many questions and not nearly enough answers. Soon after Gohan snaps and unlocks Super Saiyan 2, the fight against Perfect Cell gets heated. It is clear Gohan is not messing around anymore, and to demonstrate this, and to knock Cell down a peg, he punches Cell in the gut so hard he literally barfs up Android 18. This causes him to devolve into semi-perfect Cell. So many questions! Like, if she was absorbed into his biomass like the rest of his victims, then how did she fit inside there? The more you think about it, the more confusing it gets. It's kind of a running theme in Dragon Ball for characters with godlike powers to act like children. Just think about it. Beerus, Zeno, Majin Buu, all these characters are uber powerful, but they're also super petty. Sometimes, though, that pettiness can bring out some serious power. It will surprise no one that Majin Buu and Beerus nearly killed each other and everyone around them over some pudding. Well, we should rephrase that. Beerus nearly killed Buu and everyone around him because of some pudding. Vegeta and the others could do nothing to calm him down, and it set the tone for DBS, that there would be enemies beyond even Vegeta's power. Often in a battle shonen, a character will show off their power by blocking a powerful blast with the flick of their wrist. This happens all the time in Dragon Ball, but instead, this entry is about how much power one character can dish out with one hand. It was the most powerful Kamehameha in the series, Gohan versus Perfect Cell. Gohan's arm was damaged too much, so he had to use just one hand to meet Cell's 2. The 2 blasts were evenly met, but after a spiritual pep talk with Goku, Gohan was able to put in enough power to defeat Cell for good, all with one hand. The word elite is supposed to imply that you are a cut above the rest, the top performers. The Ginyu Force is supposed to be Frieza's top men in the army and called for special, daunting tasks. For a time, the Ginyu Force was a crushing force, easily defeating Krillin, Gohan, and Vegeta. All of that changed, however, when Goku stepped in. It didn't really matter if they all came at him or one at a time. Raccoon, Berter, and Jace all got clobbered to such an extent that Captain Ginyu had to get involved. While the Ginyu Force was dispatched easily enough, they were technically elite compared to the average Frieza soldier. Once again, Trunks is thinking 2 steps ahead by bringing a sword to a fistfight. The Zamasu arc was a pretty daunting arc, where the main villain was not only an immortal god, but also a time traveler. And also Goku, kind of. However, in their final hour against the fused Zamasu, the entire world gave their energy to one being in order to end it all with one last strike. Fans of Dragon Ball will recognize this as a spirit bomb, but with Trunks, it was different. The energy was absorbed into his sword, making a spirit sword capable of cutting a god in 2. Like Gohan, Goten and Trunks are more powerful than Goku was at their age. The younger generation keeps getting stronger. The 2 10-year-olds were already Super Saiyans by the time they entered the ring against Majin Buu. Of course, they still could not take on the Pig Menace alone, which is why they fused to make Gotenks. It was their last option at the time. Gotenks was, for a brief period, the most powerful fighter they had to face against Majin Buu. And for a change, Gotenks gave Buu and Super Buu a run for their money. While it may not have lasted, Gotenks gave this pink bubblegum monster one heck of a beatdown. Perhaps one of the most satisfying yet frustrating moments in all of Dragon Ball Z was the exchange between Vegeta and semi-perfect Cell. Cell, who just came off of absorbing Android 17, was seemingly unstoppable. Vegeta and Trunks, having come out of the hyperbolic time chamber, proved Cell was indeed very stoppable. Cell didn't stand a chance as Vegeta knocked him around like he was imperfect Cell. Without Android 18, Cell was no match for Vegeta in this state, and they both knew that. The only thing that stopped this one-sided beatdown was Vegeta's arrogance as he let him absorb Android 18 to become perfect, and it would be his downfall. And now, Vegeta's downfall. Shortly after becoming perfect, Cell was ready to give Vegeta the fight he wanted. Vegeta would soon come to regret his hubris. The power difference between semi-perfect Cell and perfect Cell are leagues apart, and in this transformation, Cell outclassed Vegeta in every category. Cell even let Vegeta hit him with a final flash, and while it did damage, Cell was able to regenerate. When it was Cell's turn, he let Vegeta have it hard. The Saiyan Prince was ragdolled and thrown about with nary a care. Cell finished it all off with a devastating pile driver that broke Vegeta's back, breaking his body and his pride. Double kill. We've talked about how the younger generations surpassed Goku's power level when he was their age, but that's not to say Goku did not take on challenging opponents. Even with their power difference, Kid Goku has a lot more battle experience compared to his kids. Perhaps his most challenging opponent was the Demon King himself, King Piccolo. It seemed Goku was down for the count, but with the last of his strength, Goku used a one-handed kamehameha to propel himself with so much force, he managed to punch a hole through King Piccolo's chest. Even by Dragon Ball Z standards, this was a particularly brutal way to take someone out. Before Vegeta would be utterly defeated by both Android 18 and Perfect Cell, Vegeta would shine and utterly demolish another android. At this time, Vegeta had just attained Super Saiyan status and was ready to test out his new powers against a worthy opponent. And it just so happened, two androids were on the loose. After defeating Goku while he was in the middle of a heart attack, Vegeta stepped in to face off against the weird clown android. Before, Android 19 was on top of the world, but the android soon found himself up against the wall as Vegeta mercilessly ripped his arms off. Left disarmed, the android fled in futile terror before being blown up. In the twilight hours of the Namek saga, Goku was in critical condition after defeating Ginyu and needed to recover in a healing tank. However, Frieza was still out there, and he was pissed. The only people left to stand up to him were Krillin, Gohan, Piccolo, and Vegeta. So yeah, things were not looking good. The ragtag group managed to keep Frieza at bay through his transformations, but when he reached his final form, playtime was over. He made quick work of Piccolo, not killing him, but taking him out of the fight. The time before the Saiyan saga was odd. It was like Dragon Ball 1.5. Goku still used Nimbus, and the most powerful being at the time was Raditz, Goku's surprise older brother. Even with the aid of Piccolo, Goku was getting pummeled by Raditz. They needed a plan, something that could just drill right through him. You know where this is going. Piccolo unleashes the special beam cannon, the Makanko Sappo. The beam is so powerful it not only rips through Raditz's chest, but also Goku's. Piccolo gets a sweet double kill. Coming off Dragon Ball, this example of brutal power sets us up nicely for the insanity that is Dragon Ball Z. We have seen divine beings unleash destruction energy, but we rarely see that kind of power wielded by a mortal. However, some beings are able to use destruction energy without being a destroyer themselves. Frieza briefly used it against Goku. In the Tournament of Power, we see Toph unleash this kind of devastating power. The same kind of power that can destroy planets and even Kai with ease is wielded with such efficacy by a mortal. It was a game changer during the match, and it even surprised the other destroyers watching when Toph unleashed such power. Lastly, we have the match that started off super. The confrontation between Lord Beerus and Goku. Beerus was compelled to seek out Goku when he had a vision of a warrior that could surpass him. Through his search, he found Goku. Never passing up a fight, Goku agreed to take the God of Destruction head-on without a care of what kind of power he had hidden. The initial fight on King Kai's planet was short but brutal as Beerus barely raised a hand to knock back Super Saiyan 3 Goku. It was a wake-up call to Goku that there are beings out there even beyond his comprehension when it comes to raw power and ability. And those were some of the most brutal beatdowns in Dragon Ball history. Which one was your favorite? Ours was when Piccolo destroyed the moon. It was just such an out-of-nowhere move for him to destroy an entire moon. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to CBR for more anime content. Thanks for watching.